The man in front of you takes one more step and disappears. No crack, no warning, no sound at all. 1 second he is there. The next, the frozen river closes over him like nothing ever happened. The ice does not break loudly. It simply opens, swallows him, and seals itself again. This is how medieval winters killed most people. Not with storms, not with blizzards, but with ice that looked perfect and stayed silent. People learned this too late. Once you fall into freezing water, you have seconds before your body stops obeying you. Your breath vanishes, your muscles lock, and if no one can reach you without dying as well, the river keeps you. So medieval people learned a rule that still sounds wrong today. The ice that makes no noise is the one that kills you. In this story, you will learn how they learned to detect weak ice, not after it cracked, but before it ever warned them. For medieval people, winter was not just cold. It was the narrowing of choices. When snow buried the trails, when wheels could no longer roll over frozen mud, frozen rivers became the only paths left. Not crossing the river meant no food, no firewood, no news, no hope. But crossing the river also meant placing your life on a surface that never told the truth. Ice is never the same. Some sections are thick and hard like stone, others thin like glass, even though both are covered by the same identical layer of white snow. Beneath the ice, water still flows quietly, hollowing it out from within. A small stream, a pocket of warm water from the ground, or simply a school of fish gathering together, is enough to create a deadly weak point. Medieval people had no thermal maps, but they had something more frightening. A list of places where people had once disappeared. Accidents happened without warning. No explosion, no dramatic spectacle like in films. Just a step, and then a void. The person walking ahead is suddenly gone. The horse pulling a loaded cart suddenly collapses, its hind legs disappearing into the black water. Any cry for help, if it comes at all, is torn apart by the winter wind. Those who remain can only watch, helpless, because jumping in to rescue often only creates one more death. The most terrifying thing is not the ice breaking, but the feeling that the ice is alive. It makes sounds, not loud cracks, but low, drawn-out noises, like groans rising from the river's depths. At night, those sounds creep into sleep, jolting people awake, hearts racing, wondering whether the path across the river will still exist come morning. The human body is not made to conquer cold water. After only a few seconds of contact, breathing becomes chaotic. Blood withdraws from the hands and feet, muscles stiffen. In the mind, only panic remains. Medieval people knew this, not from books, but from having seen too many bodies pulled out when the ice melted in spring. That fear forced them to change the way they thought. They no longer asked whether the ice was thick enough. They began to observe the smallest details, the color of the ice, the way snow lay on its surface. Animal tracks, because beasts are lighter than humans, but not foolish enough to commit suicide. They learned to walk slowly, not out of caution, but out of fear of missing a tiny signal that could save their lives. Gradually, from repeated losses, something like a collective memory formed. Stories told by the hearth, warnings whispered when nearing the riverbank. No one called it knowledge. It was survival distilled from pain. And among everything they learned, there was one lesson above all else. Ice always speaks before it betrays you. The question is whether you are calm enough to hear it. At first, medieval people believed that listening was enough. They trusted that weak ice would betray itself through scattered cracks, suspicious groaning sounds. And indeed, sometimes this saved lives. A footstep stopped in time. A wagon train turning back into the fog. A soldier hesitating when a strange sound echoed up from beneath his feet. But then, winter passed, and the deaths continued. Ice kept killing people, even when it had already spoken. The problem lay here. Not every sound meant danger. Thick ice also makes noise. Strong ice also makes noise. When temperatures shift, when the surface contracts, when wind passes through old fractures, an entire river can groan like a living creature. If people relied only on their ears, they would soon die of fear, or die because they mistook silence for safety. The first illusion collapsed right there. They realized listening alone was not enough. And then from those very trials and errors, a different approach emerged. No spectacle, no mysticism, just a wooden stick, an axe handle, or the tip of a spear. The one in front did not step forward immediately. He stopped. He tapped lightly on the surface. Not to break the ice, but to converse with it. The sound that came back was completely different. Strong ice answered with a deep, dull, short thud, as if swallowing the touch whole. Weak ice did not. It rang. It spread. It replied with a hollow, drawn-out sound, as though the empty space beneath were opening its mouth. But even then, danger did not stop. The second climax emerged when they realized a harsher truth. A sheet of ice could support one person, but not two. It could bear a step, but not hesitation. It could bear weight, but not gathering. There were people who crossed safely, only to turn back to save a friend and die together in the same hole in the ice. The ice did not collapse out of malice. It collapsed because of rules. From that point on, a system of survival formed, needing no written laws, yet understood by all. The one in front always went alone. Distance was kept absolutely. No stopping in the middle of the river. No sudden turning back. Never step into old footprints unless certain. Ropes were tied in advance, not to save someone who had already fallen, but to pull back someone about to fall when the ice began to change its voice. Every rule was paid for with someone's life in the past. Then the third climax arrived, more ruthless than all the rest. They discovered that the most dangerous ice was not the ice that made noise, but the ice that made no sound at all. Perfectly white sheets, evenly covered with snow, silent to perfection. No groans, no cracks, no warning. Those were the places that killed the most people. Newly formed ice, ice hidden beneath snow, ice over fast-moving water. Every sense was deceived. At this point, survival was no longer a matter of courage or personal experience. It became absolute doubt. The survivor was not the bravest person, but the one who never fully trusted what looked safe. Every step was a negotiation with death. Every tap on the ice was a whispered question. Are you telling the truth? If you place yourself in that position, in the middle of a frozen river, hunger behind you, deadly silence ahead, what would you trust to move forward? Leave your thoughts in the comments. The way you answer this question says a great deal about how you face danger in life. In instinctive human thinking, danger is always loud. We believe that what is about to kill us will shake, will crack open, will give us a chance to run. But medieval winter taught the opposite lesson, cold and merciless. The sheets of ice that killed the most people were not the ones that groaned, but the ones that were perfectly silent. Newly formed ice often has a milky white color, a smooth surface, evenly covered with snow as if deliberately concealed. It makes no sound. It gives no response when lightly tapped. Sound is swallowed by the snow, vibrations are dispersed. To the human eye, it looks like stability itself. To the water beneath, it is nothing more than a fragile shell waiting for the first weight to break it. Countless people died because they trusted that calm appearance. This is the cruelest twist of all. Every skill of listening, tapping, sensing vibration becomes useless in the face of an ice that does not speak. And from there, medieval people were forced to take one more step in survival thinking. They did not just test the ice, they tested the circumstances around the ice. Was the river flowing fast? Was there a bend? Were there any patches of dark water exposed nearby? Were there animal tracks that turned back abruptly or not? They began to understand that ice does not exist on its own. It is the result of temperature, current, time, and cover. A silent sheet of ice is not silent because it is strong, but because it is still too young to speak. Safety does not lie in sound, but in asking the right question. And that question is always the same. Why does this place look so perfect? The resolution of the story is not a technical trick, but a change in the way the world is seen. The survivors were not the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones who doubted every certainty. They slowed down when everything looked too fine. They stepped back when instinct said there was nothing to worry about. In a world where mistakes meant death, suspicion became a noble virtue. Medieval people did not call this wisdom. They called it memory. The memory of those who did not return. The memory of empty gaps on the river's surface when spring arrived. And it was that memory that quietly saved the lives of those who came after, step by step, winter after winter, each time the ice betrayed again. When looking back from the modern world, it is easy for us to think that medieval people survived by luck, but the truth is far harder to accept. They did not live by luck. They lived by learning not to trust what looked safe. Every step on the ice was the result of hundreds of deaths before it. Every unwritten survival rule was not recorded on paper, but carved deep into collective memory and very real fear. The greatest lesson medieval winter left behind does not lie in the ice-testing stick, nor in dull or hollow sounds. It lies in an attitude toward life. Danger rarely appears in an obvious form. What kills people usually does not scream. It is silent. It looks fine. It lowers our guard. And when we trust that calm appearance, it strikes. In modern life, ice may no longer lie beneath our feet, but silent ice is still everywhere. Decisions that seem certain, paths that everyone takes, choices wrapped in familiarity and apparent reason. Just like medieval people, we rarely get into trouble because of things that are clearly dangerous, but because of things that are too perfect to doubt. Medieval people did not have modern science, but they understood something we sometimes forget. Survival does not come from blind confidence, but from the ability to stop, to listen, and to ask the right questions at the right time. They did not trust ice simply because it made no sound. They did not move forward just because others had passed before them. They learned to slow down in a world where slowing down was sometimes the only way to stay alive. There is a very beautiful longing hidden behind this story. It is the longing to live with awareness, to walk through life not only with belief, but with observation, humility, and respect for risk. Not to fear everything, but to avoid being deceived by the calm appearance of things. If this story made you reflect, share in the comments. In your life, what has been the most dangerous, silent ice you have ever faced? And if you want to continue exploring forgotten survival knowledge, historical truths that people paid for with their lives to learn, subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories like this, waiting to be told.